and welcome to the Fantasyland Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Shorten, and we are right in the thick of it now. We are doing all of our drafts. Obviously, we have gone through the different sleepers last week. We've gone through all the different tiers. If you follow me on TikTok, you'll see all of my different takes, all the different questions, this player of this person, XYZ, different preseason things. It's been pretty cool, and obviously this is, for me anyway, I find this the most exciting part of the fantasy basketball season. It's where we get to build our team. It's where we get to grab players that we've been eyeing off for a number of months now, even going in towards the back end of last year, players that you've been wanting to own, but you just haven't been able to get onto your teams for whatever reason. So the last in the series of the sleepers and busts, obviously sleepers last week, we're going to do busts this week. So we're going to run through one for each position, point guard through to center, and talk about the different people that I think are busts. So why I hesitated there is because bust is it's a negative term. It's a term that you would refer to somebody who is just not good, which is not the case for what I'm about to talk about. It's a bust is somebody who is not going to live up to the position that you have potentially drafted them at. And there are concerns, which I'm obviously going to speak through. The reason why I wanted to kind of preface that off the top is because the number one guy here I've got is Ja Morant. Ja Morant is somebody who I personally think is a bust and has been a bust for fantasy basketball, and I'll stress that I'm talking fantasy basketball since he started in the NBA. He's a flashy player. He's a marquee player for the Grizzlies. He is going to be a future stud, if not a current stud in the NBA. He has a bit that he needs to work on the defensive side and bringing out his range, as well as obviously being able to connect at the stripe. But from a fantasy aspect, I think that there is just too many holes. He is really good whenever he is distributing the rock. 7 assists is great. He does turn it over 3.5 times a game, or just over 3 times a game. Doesn't do much in the defensive end. I think he had under a steal last year. He definitely had under a steal in his rookie year. Doesn't block. Doesn't connect from deep. 45% from the field and under 20 points per game. And yeah, look, real life he's going to be a really good player, but for fantasy, where you're drafting him is crazy. He's going in the 30s to 40 range. I was speaking to a friend of mine earlier who's thinking about taking him at the turn of the 24 and 25 in 9 category leagues. And I mean, great for my team because I'm not going to have him, and I think he's way set to pick there, but I think that it's just silly. I told him that, and it's at that point you want to get players who are going to help you out across the board. Ja Morant is effectively a glorified assist specialist. I would much rather, I'd feel a lot more comfortable taking a CJ McConnell at the end of your draft where you're going to get assists and you're going to get steals. That's pretty much it. Rather than spending a 3rd or 4th rounder on Ja Morant whenever he really does just contribute in assists. And yeah, he's going to get you close to 20 points a game, but I'll stream the points off the waivers if I need to, or I'll grab a shooter later on if I need to grab that. So scathing. There's people that are in my leagues that are going to listen to this and they're going to take Ja, and that's fine. I'm not that sort of a guy. I just don't see the value there. And I think that where you're drafting him, it just doesn't make sense. Last year, he finished outside the top 200 for per game value. That does take into account the fact that he missed 9 games with injury, but it's just not there. His fantasy aspect in category leagues is just not there. In points leagues, I get it. Yeah, he's okay. But yeah, for categories, it's not for me, and I would be suggesting that people don't take him until probably 70 or 80 at the earliest, which, yeah, he's probably going to be gone at that point, but your team will be better for it. At the 2 guard, so I might have to flex. Yeah, I mean, he's listed as a 2 guard on some platforms, but I'm going to go with Kyrie Irving. It's an obvious pick, but it needs to be said. Kyrie Irving as it currently sits, is reportedly unvaccinated. What that means for fantasy is that he plays in a state which is mandating vaccinations, and correct me if I'm slightly wrong here, but New York is mandated vaccinations, which means that Kyrie can't take the court and play in home games. That's 41 games gone. They've got a one away game to the Knicks in the same stadium, obviously. It's another game gone. They've got 2 games away to Golden State. That's another mandated area that he can't take the court in, and Toronto as well. So that's 45 games that Kyrie Irving, before injuries, because we know that he has gripes with management. We know that he has gripes online, and he probably has some things that he needs to sort out, to be fair. But from a fantasy aspect, we know that he's going to miss time through injury, through rest, whatever. But he's already missing 45 games going into the year. And let's say he does play every single other game. That's still not enough to hit the value at 25 to 30 for where Kyrie Irving's going to go. If he played every single game, Kyrie would be a top 5 player. He is such a good basketballer. But the thing is that he knows that he's a good basketballer, and he just wants to be there for finals. He does not care about the regular season, which is when fantasy basketball is on. So what that means for us is steer clear of Kyrie Irving. Again, he's not somebody that I'm going to be touching until we get to like 100. If you're in a league where he's slipping and you want to take a punt on him, and he would obviously be a game changer late in your draft, but it's just too risky for me, and it's not somebody that I want to go anywhere near. At the 3, we're going to go with Jerami Grant. Jerami Grant is somebody who I can see the appeal in. I can understand why you would want him. He is in a team that is not very good, and he is, well, before this year, he was the marquee player, I suppose. And that all usually bodes well for fantasy. Usage, looks, people talking about your sexy name, all this sort of stuff. Jerami Grant is somebody who I think is going to struggle this year. Their team is deeper than what it was last year. They've obviously got Cade Cunningham coming in. He's going to be demanding the rock. They've got Isaiah Stewart, who I think is going to take a step up. They've got Kelly Olynyk coming in, who is going to... they've already spoken about how he's going to be a high usage guy as well, whether that's off the bench or otherwise. He's still going to get his touches, and he stretches the floor really well. Jerami Grant, he had a good year, 25, 5-5 or close to, 25, 5-3 maybe. Couple of triples. Percentages weren't great, and he usually, or whenever he was in Denver, he had some really good defensive stats. The same in OKC. He had good defensive stats. He didn't bring that to the table when he was popping on the offensive end, which hurt his fantasy value. He finished just inside the top 100. He's going around about 70 at the moment, and I just think that that's too rich for somebody who is due to regress. He is going to get better as a player. He is still young, somewhat young, but Cade Cunningham, as I said, he is going to be the guy there. And I think that the young core that they've got, Killian Hayes, Hamidou Diallo, these guys are going to need touches. Jerami Grant, realistically, is not going to be in their window for championships, so they're going to develop their young guys, and he's going to be, I suppose, the veteran head. So, yeah, he's going to get his, yeah, he's going to put up numbers, and yeah, he may even have a similar year to last year, but that's still not good enough for top 70 value where he's currently going. So, I am fading on Jerami Grant until you get closer to 100, but I get it if you want to take him earlier. I don't see the value being there for that pick. I would much rather, let me put it to you another way. I'd much rather take one of the sleepers that I mentioned last week in the 70s to 80s range than taking a Jerami Grant where if you think about it, his production is just not going to be there. It shouldn't be there. If it is there, then I'll be absolutely surprised. I'll eat my hat, and it just doesn't make too much sense that he's going to have a year repeating last year or a year better than last year. Moving on to power forward. So I've got I've got Zion Williamson here. He's obviously a hot name. He is the marquee player for New Orleans. He is going to get better. He's just young. Everybody knows he like everybody looks at him and goes, yeah, but what happens if he improves his assists? What happens if he blocked so many shots in college? Why can't he improve his blocks and all this sort of stuff? That's not what my concern is. Yeah, I don't necessarily think that he's going to be able to add any sort of range to his shot. Maybe a deep two, but he's not going to be able to add a 3-point shot, especially this year. He's not great from the line. His assists were a surprise last year. He got more than I expected, but that's purely from a passing out of the inside and passing down the court. Like, yeah, those are good, except it's not a staple for him building on playmaking, and his defensive stats will get there. Well, they might get there, but he is slow. He is explosive, but it takes him a second to go. My biggest concern about Zion is his health. We've already seen that he's hurt himself. As minor as it was, we saw him hurt himself even before the preseason started. If New Orleans want to make a run at the playoffs, which they need to make a run at the playoffs, otherwise they risk losing Zion. Similar situation to AD, then they need Zion for the postseason. The only way they're going to get Zion for the postseason is to manage his minutes and to manage his health throughout the year. There's no possible way that they get there if he misses a month or two with injuries mid-year. He's just too important to them. So I think that Zion's minutes are going to definitely be impacted when he does play, and I do think that he's going to rest games here and there as well. I reckon he could miss up to 20 games this year, and if that's the case, you've got to knock him down from where he's going somewhere in like the 20s and 30s at the moment. I would be knocking him down to after 50 because you just can't have that sort of games missed on your team. Like you need to have games played. There's no point having somebody who, yeah, they might get you 20 and 10 over each night for a 4-game week, but if they're missing one game out of that week, you're getting 60 and 30 as opposed to the 80 and 40 that you were expecting. If that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Availability and health is probably the cornerstone to having a successful team. You will struggle to find someone who has had one of their first 3 go down and still be successful throughout the year. You hear a lot of people say, if my team was healthy, if my team was healthy, if my team was healthy, which is fine, but there are warning signs there. And yeah, if you want to take Zion, I get it. Again, he's a good player. He is going to anchor you whenever it comes to points. He's going to get you a lot. He's going to anchor you whenever it comes to field goal as well, because all he does is just jam it down, and it is great to watch. New Orleans are a cool team to watch as well, so you want to have players that you want to watch, but the warning signs are there that he is going to miss games. Proceed with caution, and that's probably all I have to say on the matter. And then finally, let's talk about the 5. So, funnily enough, this is actually a guy that I'm contemplating taking. So, if you follow me on TikTok, you'll know that in one of my drafts, probably one of my main drafts, I've been doing this one for over a decade now, and I've got, unfortunately, pick 12 in a 12-teamer. It's not the pick that I want. I definitely think this year there is a lot to be said about having an early pick, a pick 1, 2, and 3. Pick 1 and 2, I think, stand out above everybody else, being Jokic and Harden for mine in category leagues. But whenever you get to 3 through to 12, that gap is quite small. So Joel Embiid is the guy I'm talking about. He's somebody who I do think is going to slide to me. And if he does, I think when you get towards the end of your first round, that 12, that 13, if you're in a deeper league than that, 16, 20, 30, you gotta go for upside. You gotta shoot for upside. Ben Simmons, he is as good as gone. He's either not going to play or he's going to get traded, and he's going to get traded for cents on the dollar. And all that means is that Joel Embiid is going to absolutely smash. Obviously, his health is the biggest concern, so I'm going to take safer and healthier players towards my middle and later rounds just to hopefully combat that a bit. But at 12, I'm punting for the upside. Well, I shouldn't say punting. I'm shooting for the upside. The reason why Joel Embiid is in the bust is because it is a risk. We know what he can do whenever he's on the court. He was, I think, the sixth rated player per game value, but then he dropped closer to 20 whenever you take into account the missed games. He hasn't played more than, I think, maybe 65 games throughout his entire NBA career. And to be honest, I kind of forecast that going into this year as well. They need him in the postseason to be successful. So, yeah, I am expecting 15, maybe even 20 games missed. But again, I'm going for upside for whenever he's on the court that he's going to be a game changer. I do think that he could be in the conversation of MVP this year, and he is going to be somebody who is absolutely smashing it whenever he is on the court. That being said, he gets injured, he goes down, and he's going to take time to recover. He's a big guy. We've seen that when he goes down, he does take time. He doesn't tend to play on on an injured body. So that's where the bust part comes into it. He has the capability of being a top 5 guy. He has the capability of being a top 1 guy, to be honest. He shoots well from the field, obviously, great from the line. Shoots a couple of triples, rebounds fantastically. I think he had maybe 2.5 assists, which is not terrific, but you can't win them all. Steals well, blocks well, turns the ball over a bit for a big man, but again, you can't win them all, and it's going to get you nearly 30 points a game. So the upside is absolutely there, but obviously the risk of him missing games is there as well. So proceed with caution. Again, I feel like this shouldn't be called the bust. I feel like it should be called the proceed with caution, because besides Kyrie, maybe just proceed with caution for all of these guys. But yeah, Joel Embiid is somebody who is an intriguing one. He, depending on what website you're on, and I've got more of that in the draft guide, depending on what website you're on, he's ranked as high as 6, and others he's ranked as low as 19, taking into account his injuries. So I'm going to take him at 12 if he's there. I think arguably, if you're, depending on who you're looking to get with your second pick, if you're getting somebody healthy, then you take the risk at that point. But yeah, Joel Embiid, proceed with caution. I'm going to I'm not going to talk about Kemba Walker, because I've spoken about him enough. I think we all know about Kemba Walker's body. The other one I'm going to talk about is Kelly Olynyk. So Kelly Olynyk last year, he absolutely slayed it in Houston. The caveat I will say is that Houston didn't play a lot of their good players. Obviously, Christian Wood went down. John Wall went down. So the usage has to go somewhere. Kelly Olynyk was the guy who got that, and he played really, really well. And people are taking that into account when they're drafting him this year. He is going in the 70s and 80s, which I think, yeah, maybe he's got that as an upside. But it's Kelly Olynyk we're talking about here. He has never been this guy. So unless he is getting full usage, which he's not going to get in Detroit, as I said, they've got Cade Cunningham. They've got Jerami Grant. They've got these young guys that they want to develop. Isaiah Stewart is going to take a fair bit of usage as well. These guys are in their timeline for success. Kelly Olynyk, Jerami Grant are not. So proceed with caution with Kelly Olynyk. If you need boards and threes later, he's going to be safe for that. He's probably going to get you a block and a half as well. He's a good player. Like he's fine, except he's not this top 70 guy that everybody is going on about. If he is, again, I'll eat my hat. I could be eating multiple hats here. But Kelly Olynyk is probably the sixth man of this bust proceed with caution team, because I just don't think that at his draft point he is going to hit that value. I think he's going to be a plus 100 guy. I won't be taking him. There is, again, at that 70 point, there is guys who I absolutely want to take and guys that I'm going to be reaching on. Again, spoke about a few of those guys last week, speak about more of them on TikTok, as well as in this the kind of mini draft guide cheat sheet that I've got, which is up on Etsy. So hopefully that will help you guys out. But again, if I'm going to, similar to last week, if I'm going to rank these guys as to who the bust potential and the proceed with caution potential, then I would say Ja Morant is at number one because he's just not going to get that value. Number two, I would say, actually no, number one by a country mile is Kyrie Irving. What am I talking about? Kyrie Irving is just not going to hit that value. Number two, Ja Morant. Again, proceed with caution. Kyrie Irving, just don't draft. Number three, we're probably going to say Jerami Grant because his percentages really weren't there last year and his defensive stats weren't there either, at least with Zion Williamson, who I'd say is next. There is so much room to grow. He just needs to stay healthy, and healthy in itself could be a category. But if I'm banking on Zion Williamson staying healthy and playing enough games to, not so much staying healthy, banking on him playing enough games to maintain value, I'm banking on that as opposed to Jerami Grant all of a sudden being a stud. And then finally, the Joel Embiid. Yeah. No, Kelly Olynyk, then Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid, I think if Ben Simmons is gone, they're going to need him to play to win games. Their team's not that deep. So he will play as many games as he can. But obviously the risk of him rolling an ankle or hurting his back or anything is real. So again, proceed with caution for him. But I alluded to it a little bit throughout there. I've got a draft guide up on Etsy. Hopefully by the time there's issues with the Etsy store at the moment. Hopefully by the time this goes up, it is all good. Again, I'll put the link in the description here. Follow us on TikTok, follow us on Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening. Make sure you click the button if you are new here. If you're not, thank you again for listening, and good luck with your drafts if they are this weekend. And talk to you next week. Bye.